A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. As Jesus continued his journey to Jerusalem, he traveled through Samaria and Galilee. As he was entering a village, 10 lepers met him. They stood at a distance from him and raised their voices, saying, "Jesus, Master, have pity on us." And when he saw them, he said, "Go, show yourselves to the priests." As they were going, they were cleansed. And one of them, realizing that he had been healed, returned, glorifying God in a loud voice, and he fell at the feet of Jesus and thanked him. He was a Samaritan. Jesus said in reply, 10 were cleansed, were they not? Where are the other 9? Has none but this foreigner returned to give thanks to God? Then he said to him, "Stand up and go. Your faith has saved you." The Gospel of the Lord. If you get a chance when you get home today, if you could look up in your family Bibles the 5th chapter of the 2nd book of Kings and read the first part of our first reading this morning. It is filled with some details that really help us understand what God is saying to us. Just very briefly, Naaman was a very important general in the Armenian army. But he had leprosy, which of course in those days was like a death sentence. Now in a raid, the Armenians had captured a little Israeli girl, and she was a servant to Naaman's wife. And she said to Naaman's wife, "There is a man of God in my country, Elisha, who could cure your husband." And so Naaman set out. And when he got to Elisha, he was given the order to wash 7 times in the Jordan. And he got very angry. He said, "I have great rivers in my country. Why should I go and wash in this dinky little stream you call the Jordan?" But his servant said to him, "Look, if Elisha, the man of God, had asked you to do something difficult, you would have done it. He's asking you to do something rather simple. You've come this way. Try it." And he was convinced. He bathed 7 times in the Jordan and came out, as we heard in the gospel, absolutely cleansed of his leprosy. He was very grateful, wanted to give a gift, which Elisha refused. And so he said, "Well, let me take some dirt back from here, some of the ground that is holy in this country, because I want to carry your God back with me." He had come to faith, gratitude and faith in a foreigner, and that prepares us for the gospel story. Jesus is approaching a town. Now, in addition to being a terrible physical sickness that led to death, leprosy was also something that isolated people completely. They had to leave their family, their friends, everything familiar to them, and live outside the gates of a town. They could have no contact with everyone else. And so as Jesus approaches this village, they cry out to him, "Have pity on us." And notice that Jesus does not heal them immediately, but rather says to them, "Go show yourselves to the priests." Now, they might have easily said, "How can we show ourselves to the priests? We're still lepers." But they didn't. They trusted Jesus' word. And as they were going, they were healed. Now, what does all of this say to you and to me? Well, first of all, let's look at the people that God chooses. Foreigners, Naaman, the Samaritan. God chooses little people often, people that we might easily overlook, to be his instruments, to carry his message. The little girl that was captured, who gave the right advice to Naaman's wife. Those servants of Naaman who said, look, why don't you do what the holy man is asking of you? And it was through these very ordinary, everyday, easily overlooked people that God works. And the second point is that sometimes we just need to be doing what God asks us to do, and we will find healing. As the lepers, in following Jesus' orders, were healed. So we might get up in the morning very anxious about something, very angry over something, asking God to heal us. But if we go through the day listening, watching, because we never know through whom God will speak, where God will speak, when God will speak. But if we go alert to the presence of God and follow what we hear, healing will come. Maybe as we go through that day, we become aware of a word spoken in anger to a spouse the night before. And we hear very clearly, I need to call to apologize. Or a student may come home from school and say, if I can just do my homework right away, everything else in the family will go so much more smoothly tonight. Hearing that call. And so this Word of God this morning is a reminder of the everyday presence of God. A reminder that we don't know when, how, and through whom God will speak to us. But God will speak to us, and we want to be alert and aware. And that following that voice, that indication from God, will bring peace. And finally, at the end of a day, when we recognize that God has been with us, that God has brought us the peace or the understanding that we were looking for in the morning, we must give thanks for the way in which God was present in the course of the day. And be sure that we return to the source of our strength, of our direction, and say with Naaman, with the Samaritan, Lord, thank you.